all the other kind of ideas like mental emotion. Busy how find housing. There's some police, but police have another one. No one has transitional shelters offer temporary refuge for women and families fleeing violence. A person can stay up to 30 days in first stage housing, 18 months for second stage, and the difficult task of finding permanent housing. There were a lot more people that were denied and then also people about that more as well. A recent study by the BC Society of Transition Counselors shows there are backlogs at every state. Those barriers to finding permanent place having a trickle-down effect for people fleeing for their lives. Not only are we seeing within our housing, not into the housing and within the housing, but we're also not it's looking to create more transitional housing spaces and providers have the flexibility to push beyond the prescribed standards. A part of the problem is shortage of long-term housing across BC. We know that there's a shortage of housing, and we know from the staff that the certain individual who wants to provide a situation often housing is available. The survivor these folks who spent 6 months in the first stage and more than 2 years in second. The search for a permanent home often ending with landlords turning her away within a single month. This found cycle of disability and the crisis matched your income. Scale the matter. BC's housing crisis into a new horrifying level when it comes to finding housing. This is one of the biggest things that I've been transforming that we just want to take some of the difference between victims and their children back into the hands of their abusers. Daria Zongar, Good News. Private is able to listen to news and in this week's episode of How You Respect Your Self with Victory I never want to ask yourself, how do you feel electric generators generate the equivalent of 8 units There's a lot of noise out there. What is real? What is false? CNBC News is here or convenience. Sifting through the noise to help you make your best choice. Because zero Canada Votes 2025. Mr. Weekend has been marked a very strong move in Korea with Sam's countries against nearly 200 parties across South America have gathered with Peru biblical scenes into the dunes. Now, in its 19th year, the resolution continues to draw large crowds to the landscape into a living canvas. Viral trends include Annabelle and Canva, videos that have been viewed millions of times, playing some top random China, which are not necessarily European creators said, but they got that story. Directly as this style, this time. Also, a viral TikTok trend undercuts North Fashion's most luxurious brands by claiming China is the original equipment manufacturer for OEM. For the past 2 years, the manufacturer for most of the luxury brands are on Gucci, Coach, and Louis Vuitton. The lady who carried Gucci 80% comes from Chinese factories. They just have a logo in Europe to make it pay the price of 10 times. High-end brands dispute that. Louis says it makes 55% of its objects in its own exclusive workshops in France. Louis Vuitton says its leather goods are exclusively produced in its workshops in France, Spain, Italy, and the US. While Gucci says 95% of Gucci suppliers are in Italy. Experts tell Global News the truth is murky. That's all we have is luxury manufacturing. Is it produced in China manufacturing? Dana Thomas says some high-end goods are made and say otherwise. Many components production comes from all over the world, including China. The price depends on how much glue you use versus selling. We actually have seen items that are very Chinese produced brands being produced in the second disaster. Canada does have requirements for labels stating the country of origin of goods is the country in which the goods were substantially manufactured. But what is substantial and what is not is a bit unclear. Anyone that says it's the same around the world. For high-end items, it basically pays for the label and for the reputation. Roland says brands will easily dispel any doubts about where things are made by being transparent. Also, there are other conditions being met. He points to Italian authorities accusing Dior of running sweatshops in Italy. Dior said the supplier paid for two from them. It's all about precision. It's all about being perfect. It's all about being excellent. So they can't say, I lost control of my This is Global News. Long weekend, longer lives. Canadian pasta ballots on the second day of advance polling as parties enter the final stretch of their campaigns. And peaceful truce, Russian President Vladimir Putin unilaterally announces a temporary ceasefire in Ukraine. They formed Blue Hand to protect Canada's future, promising to file Alex Constitution and help John Mark civil on Trump status.
The 67-page platform puts some details on the broad plan the Liberal Leader Mark Carney is on talking about this campaign. This plan to protect the Canadian economy from Donald Trump's economic threat. And indeed, the word Trump shows up 8 times in this document, while Carney's chief political advisor, Peter Bouillette, he just mentions 6 times. Now, those plans include reducing internal trade barriers, building trade corridors, and improving energy independence. There are plans to build new homes, plans to include skills training for workers, and to review board audits. And commitments are repeated to maintain national management, national gun control, and the trade of illegal child plans. The platform also contains some not yet announced policies and things we heard about in the last week of the campaign, including a commitment to spend $4 billion building new hospitals and community medical clinics. There are new promises to give personal support workers an $1,100 a year refundable tax credit, which new funding for mental health. Also, some new promises for rural transit and for other major infrastructure projects. The cost of all these new ventures that the workers are proposing adds up to $130 billion over the next 4 years. The biggest of which is defense spending, an increase of $19 billion over that time period, and the Liberals say that extra $19 billion that would take us up to that greater target by spending 2% of national GDP on defense. Now, that would be offset by $20 billion in terrorism, which was a tax of dangerous trade, as well as $32 billion in savings. Unnoted are saying they could do it all the way government votes to find those $32 billion in savings and figure out ways to make government run cheaper. Maybe thank you,
More questions are being raised about the lack of discussion around Indigenous issues in the election campaign. Some wonder about the commitments to reconciliation among the federal parties if they're excluded from the process. The Carpenter reports.
Among the monuments that the party puts dedicated to people who made a difference stands one honoring a person Indigenous women are celebrating this week.
Indigenous people have to fight for their human rights. And this is exactly what the international did.
The Indigenous activist from the Mohawk community of Gunawali was largely responsible for changes made to the Indian Act 4 decades ago.
That's early, they have put in that non-Indigenous men lost their status.
The Act allowed Indigenous men to keep their status when they married to non-Indigenous partners. It was not so for Indigenous women like earlier.
If you're not an Indigenous man, well, we're going to take away your rights to be an Indigenous woman.
Losing their status meant losing part of their identity and culture, many point out.
Happy communities, so they just become a slave.
Thirdly, fought this policy for 2 decades. In 1985, her campaign finally led to the passing of Bill C-31, which amended the Indian Act and got rid of policy. As Indigenous communities mark the 40th anniversary, they point out that the repercussions were still being felt.
There's really still searching for their families.
Indigenous communities caution that despite Bill C-31 and other things being indicating their rights, much work is still left to do towards reconciliation. So they wonder why issues that affect them have largely been left to the sidelines during the federal election campaign.
They don't vote. And there's a reason.
The reason they feel politicians largely focus on people who they believe can get them elected.
As first we should do our rights, the values in this country, and it needs to be discussed. And then we need to know what are the priorities, what are the alternatives, those parties are willing to engage.
Some Indigenous who say that they have reached out to the parties, but not all have replied.
It's unfortunate that we're being decided.
They encourage community members to vote and believe that in the end, for some things, it will be up to activists like me to externally to push for change. Phil Carpenter, Global News, Montreal.
Whatever happens in the days ahead, it isn't going to change Anne Hart's vote time. Now, 30-year-old is the resident plastic bag on Friday at the House School. She says not voting is never an option, industry given all the big issues that she sees facing Canada.
Inside of the whole way. How does it make you feel?
It makes me just look at everything as my people. And I have to look up to them individually. I may not be here for the whole career, but anyway, I have to look at them. And this is the walk-on party to wait more than half an hour at the polling station. With advance polls open this weekend, Lindsey Graham community MPs are mobilizing across the country for Druids to vote. Campaigning both in person and on social media to encourage allies to the community to think outside themselves before heading to the ballot box from Druids once more.
For some of us, it's not just vote, it's how you
LNR is one of over 250 Canadian drag performers who are championing the Drag the Vote campaign, all coming together in the face of regular faces sneaking into Canadian politics and selling the board.
Most there are a lot of things as well, at least we're not in the United States, but we clearly have focuses on it, things that are going on, President Border, kind of
The campaign is taking place through merch sales, in-person events, and across social media, with their website dragthevote.ca, providing links to voter registry and info specific to trans and gender diverse voters, which Noir says she has seen threatened in her time performing.
people from exclusive groups, we've had people from anti-trans groups, we've had people from politicians that are actively trying to take away trans healthcare for not just me, but for everyone.
Fredericton's of More Love says it's not just what's being said, but what political leaders are failing to acknowledge.
And learn transparency and willingness of our political leaders to actually stand by the political community. They only stand by them when it's popular, when it's convenient.
And that those in privileged positions need to stand with those whose rights are affected, even if they themselves are not directly impacted.
This speaks to the overwhelming argument that you never had to fight for your right, and that is a right in itself. And many people are not privileged to that right. And as Canadians, we sing proudly, we sing the anthem, we hold our head high. And we still have a lot of marginalized groups within our own communities.
All in an effort to engage voters from less marginalized groups to use their ballot to protect the human rights of others, well past election day. Johnny J. Global News, Fredericton.
For more updates and continued coverage of the COVID-19, you can log on to our website, global.news.ca at any time. The main effect from static war has created a pretty serious problem for small and medium-sized businesses. Accessing loans has become more difficult, and as Angela explains, it's impacting many industries and may also be a sign of a recession. Steps from the Rogers Center in Easton and Town, the current public house is a full house in summer, and quiet season starts in the months.
The business guys how they work, companies and the then how the business is.
A small loan helps smooth the transition to peak season.
It's just always on the track.
Credit is the lifeblood that keeps many businesses running, needed for big orders or unexpected expenses.
And what's the risk? Always something that needs repair or replacement, particularly for
Tariff uncertainty has created a credit squeeze, particularly for small and medium-sized businesses.
access to evidence and public information.
Credit crunch talks saying that a recession is coming.
We're already seeing sponsorship in small businesses.
The number of employees in the community under merchant growth has fielded since Trump took office has soared. Most of the loans it offers are around $50,000, some as much as $800,000.
It's not all during the food conversation that people are investing for capital. People are being very, very smart.
Trump's trade war and threat and more levies have driven up costs and forced businesses to pivot. And tariffs on steel and aluminum drive up the price for tall beer cans by up to 15 cents. Other items like takeout containers are subject to tarifflation too. He says he hasn't felt this much uncertainty since the COVID era, but he's hopeful the bottom Canadian movement translates to a surge of local visitors. Locals embrace this with the potential of right downtown. And there's no lucky news Toronto.
No way I'm looking at it. No way I'm looking at it.
As Paul Johnson reports, it's been called a new year of innovation in fighting fires.
If you've ever seen aerials against a wildfire, you know it's some of the most challenging and expensive flying done anywhere. What if new technology could bring another capability to the fight?
This technology is what is needed by wildfire agencies and operators to supplement the traditional ways of suppressing wildfires using helicopters and
Check out the Thunderwatch, heavy-lift drone built and currently flying in Sweden. Losing his own hunt to a wildfire in 2023, BC Aerospace engineer extraordinary visioned a new wildfire attack method based on that Swedish drone flying with specialized sensors software.
the fire is for operators to be able to supervise a swarm of 5 machines able to fly autonomously.
As it stands now, wildfire fighting from the air is extreme capability of aircraft usually limited to daylight hours.
Firestorm is the first to market autonomous drones exhibition.
The Firestorm concept would be a continuous daytime attack with drones using sea software to coordinate the movements. That drone can fly for 2 hours and carry 400 meters of water, comparable to a human piloted helicopter's do. Wildfire fighting groups are already excited at the possibilities.
Finding ways to get water to remote places quickly without helicopters or roads nearby, so vehicles can afford.
Firestorm expects to be tested assistant for the rest of this year. The drones could make their BC debut the summer of 2026. And drone support years.
After the break, we look at your cross-Canada forecast series.
Global News is proud to be part of the GTA.
We know the issues that impact you the most.
We understand your needs and what us to change.
Because, like you, we want the GTA.
Our trusted team delivers more in-depth analysis and demands more accountability.
And covers more of the issues that matter to you.
Stay up to date with Global News at 5.
And more local news at 6.
Keeping the GTA informed and connected. The challenge of installing these gates is not too dissimilar from trying to build a couch in your apartment. I think it can get halfway into your home.
If you've ever asked yourself, how did they do that?
The hydroelectric generators will generate the equivalent of a clean nuclear.
We've got the answers.
So yeah, they're saying here it's in the book. That's designing large projects.
The most inspiring man-made marvels.
Believe it? Well, I actually saw it and I believe it.
There's a lot of noise out there. What is real? What is false? CBC News is here for Canadians. Sifting through the noise to help you make your best choice. Because this is your vote. Canada votes 2025.
So I checked his post right away because I'm not getting any response from him. I fell to BC and they call it time left too long after.
On your mind, that's increasingly it was just like a bomb had been dropped on my entire life.
My Instagram would be something that you scam and ultimately killed. It didn't make any sense.
You would never think that anything like that would ever happen to you until it does.
Some young local.
The temporary ceasefire has been terminated for this day. Russian President Vladimir Putin says fighting will pause from Saturday evening until midnight Sunday. He says on account of humanitarian reasons. Putin warned that troops will remain unviolated for potential violations. The ceasefire comes as fighting continues in the region. Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky responded to Putin's unilateral decision, saying that Russian drones remained in Ukrainian skies on Saturday, showing Moscow's true attitude towards Russia and the Russian people. According to Russia's defense ministry, Russia and Ukraine swapped 277 prisoners Saturday in the world's largest exchange event. Iran and the United States are holding the second round of talks over Tehran's nuclear program. The meeting follows the first round, which was held in Mali last week. Foreign Minister Abbas Araghchi with the Iranian delegation, while the envoy Steve Witkoff and the US steering. The two officials are negotiating indirectly with Iran agreements. US President Donald Trump has repeatedly threatened Iran with military strikes in case the deal is not reached. He previously pulled out of the 2015 bill which sought Iran to limit its nuclear activities. Trump said it did too little to stop Iran's potential pathway to booming nuclear weapons. The U.S. Supreme Court has temporarily halted the deportation of a group of Venezuelans in immigration custody. The court's order, issued on Saturday, directs the Trump administration not to remove any of the detainees until further notice. The move comes as a civil liberties group challenged the U.S. government's plan to deport the men who are being accused of being part of the Venezuelan gang. Trump has previously sent alleged gang members to a prison in El Salvador, invoking the 1798 Alien Enemies Act. The law gives the president power to remove deportations without due process. Thousands gathered in prayer and sorrow on the vigil of the evening after mass shooting at University of Tallahassee. 2 people were killed and 6 hurt in the attack on Thursday. And news direct reports on the investigation. The Florida State University band provided comfort and learned the songs of the vigil. Some thousands in attendance brought flowers and leaned on each other as they grieved the victims of the shooting.
This is the kind of trauma that changes people and changes place.
The victims were identified as 45-year-old Typhoon Chava, an executive of a famous food vendor, the 57-year-old Robert Morales, a high school football coach who worked in the Diamond Services Department. Madison Hoskins is one of the injured. The woman was identified as 20-year-old Phoenix Hickman, a junior at the university and a sophomore local sheriff's deputy. Police say they confronted him within minutes of the attack near the student union building, shooting and injuring him. He remains hospitalized and police say his recovery will be lengthy.
At this point, there does not appear to be any issue in any individuals.
For some students return to the campus to retrieve their belongings left behind during the shooting. Something really sad a memorial on the FSU campus is growing. CBS News. You are having a great history recap for authors that are working this time, and for many historians, either that spring is in full swing, but some areas did see there's been like this is not so much. Let's still in Western Canada, there will be seeing temperatures yesterday. And you go to we're talking temperatures, but also second quarter Rockies, and eventually that snow makes it to the thunderstorms pushing into Ontario, with some lightning, both thunder, and a lot of that is for oil and some windy conditions. The systems are going to become turbulent during the next few days, and Atlantic Canada is headed for a wild ride. There will be periods of snow that could reach 15 centimeters with the parts of movement there in the summer. Just that, and more times could see some damaging wind potential on Sunday, gusts upwards of 30 miles per hour, and wind speeds up to Eastern Miami. We are on the lookout for that as that system approaches. In the meantime, the next 4 days, communities over the course of the weekend will have a chance to see some sunshine before that sunshine extends into the interior. And on Sunday, Maritimes on Monday, will consist of only 2 patterns. And again, it's more from Ontario by Monday. Snow is going to north of that province and moving to as well. Instead of rain for 5 degrees in St. John's, Newfoundland, and Teal, the city of the province with some windy conditions. 18 on 18 degrees with a 20-degree range in Toronto, 6 in Thunder Bay. And on to this gradual warm-ups finally extending into the eastern and parts of the eastern sections of the prairies into central regions as well. 14 in Saskatoon, down to 9 degrees by in Calgary already, 13 in Edmonton, 10 in Prince George, 13 in Vancouver. Stay with us in 1 minute after the show.
Starts right here.
A number one place to be in the morning.
We've got the news you need to make that team favorite approach.
The experts you trust.
More exclusives than anywhere else.
And your first stop for the biggest entertainment stories.
The Morning Show, weekdays on Global. Coming to a final near you, a Minecraft movie meal. You can dream of a Big Mac or 10-piece chicken McNuggets with spicy nether flavor sauce. Available at McDonald's. Now let's go to the experts and find out the next line. And how many blood with my socks on? The one time to tell the truth is during the commercial break.
Talk shows and game shows on TV.
Somebody else is keeping score.
If you are the champion, start the clock.
We've got a really damn interesting element to it. Cash cow! Good for $50. Global News is proud to be part of the team here.
We know the issues that impact you the most.
We understand your needs and what needs to change.
Because, like you, we know that you do it.
I'll trust the team that knows more in-depth analysis that demands more judgment.
And covers more of the issues that matter to you.
Stay up to date with Global News at 5.
And more local news at 6.
Keeping the GTA informed and connected.
Canada under threat, sovereignty on the ballot. Join us for live coverage of a consequential federal election. When the central ballot question for many Canadians is who is best to handle Canada's relationship with the U.S.
And who's best equipped to lead Canada on the issues affecting Canadians? Join Global News on election night as Canada casts its vote.
Who will Canadians choose to stand up for Canada? Watch and follow Global News, the City of Canada, live on election night. This weekend has been about a very striking village in Canada with sand sculptures in the desert. Nearly 200 artists from across South America have gathered in Oruro to carve biblical scenes into the dunes. Now in its 19th year, the tradition continues to draw large crowds, turning the landscape into a living paradise. Cheerleading is a growing sport around the world, and now an Edmonton teacher has reviewed the children's book about the inclusivity and popularity. Nicole Soja has that story. A is for awareness. Lexi Friedman reads for the debut children's book, C is for cheer. It covers terms, skills, characteristics, age, and reading. It's a subject that Harper Key as a school teacher is passionate about. She's been involved in cheer as an athlete and a coach for nearly 2 decades. It's really 18 ordinary For Friedman, it's much more than just an athlete book about cheer. It's a chance to educate people about the growing sport. I want them to know just how cheer has evolved and the sport is today from sort of the sideline of cheer and just how competitive it is now. And she wants her young readers to be introduced to all aspects. Business or pilot business for people represented by this students. Friedman started writing Seeds for Cheer 3 years ago, and it was published in October. It is very cool that it's real. Afterwards, the school with my team and talking about it. She says it's been received quite well here in Edmonton and is starting to spread around Alberta and into BC.
Everyone so it did it's another side of it, which is kind of cool.
She hopes to write more books and says this experience has been rewarding.
But he was actually when my life first happened. It was just a really good process.
Nicole Stewart, Google News.
A lot of things in North Band from the East and to East it's a special gesture from the five city councillors. The meeting of the city's roadways to Clapham and over there. And the Winnipeg band has achieved international success, touring across Canada and the US. Owen Yang returns to Big Spring this weekend in the romantic flick The Wedding Day. Star James has more on that and other films in this fifth edition of Minute After Movie.
Marine, the director Ang Lee's 1993 romantic comedy, The Wedding Banquet, stars Oscar nominee Lily Gladstone, Kelly Marie Tran, and Saturday Night Live's Owen Yang as lovers and friends, with plans for a green card marriage to hide a wealthy marriage sexuality from a grandmother who holds his inheritance in her hands.
You amazed! It's for the cause we're hoping the couples together.
It's been a fluid career to get a future granddaughter. What are we supposed to do in Denver? Teach me the house. There's so much has been living. It's a heartfelt drama. It takes on serious tones with Joan Tim, part of an impressive cast. 3 out of 5. Stephen Jimmy is a retired serial killer named Cohen, who convinces a struggling-minded to tell the story of his chosen vocation in psychotherapy. The shallow tale of a writer who decided to write about a serial killer. John McGarrell plays Keely, threatened with divorce by his wife Susie, played by Britt Howard from Severance. He tells her that Keely is a marriage counselor.
So it's not expecting the husband to get a marriage counselor to my home and marriage counselor.
A dark comedic take on marriage with Eugenia Stand-up. 4 out of 5. In French thriller Eat the Night, 2 siblings' lives diverge when one retreats into a soon-to-be shut-down online game while the other, a drug dealer, falls in love and crosses a dangerous game. A gritty and sexual story that deftly moves between a virtual universe and a harsh and brutal reality. 4 out of 5. And in a world where monsters are being imprisoned, a homeless ghost searches for her uncle and gets help from a new family in Ellie and her monster team. A predictable story but with respectable animation and charming characters. 2 turns popcorn out of 5. That's a Minute After Movies from Global News. I'm Tyler James.
You're watching the news. Coming up next is the top stories.
This is Global News.
Hello, and thank you for watching Global News on this Saturday, April 19th. Now we will come to the top stories with talking today. Long weekend, longer lines. Canadian pasta ballots on the second day of Australia as parties entered the running stretch for campaigns. Trump's immigration crackdown hits a snag. The US Supreme Court closes the deportation of Venezuelan migrants in the 18th century electoral law. Talks for a peace deal, Iran and the US with the second round of talks with Tehran's rapidly advancing nuclear program. With a little over a week left of the election, federal party leaders are back on campaign trail as voters cast their ballots on day 2 of advance voting. Liberal leader Mark Carney was in the Greater Toronto area who released his full platform. Let's listen to what he had to say.
Today, I'm proud to launch Cannabis, our plan to unite, to secure, to protect and build. And this comprehensive plan is defined by 4 principles. The first is to unite, because in a time of crisis, in a time when President Trump is attacking our economy, is trying to weaken us, there is nothing more important than unity. Our second principle is security. Because in a more dangerous and divided world, it's essential to secure our borders, to secure our securing our economy against the threat of terrorists is only the much needed. To secure our nation over the long term, we have to do much. We need to rebuild, rearm, and reinvest our Canadian interests. Our third principle is to protect. We all know Canada is not America. We are our own country. We have our own unique identity, history, culture, and our government will always stand up for what makes Canada. The fourth principle of our plan is build. We used to build things in this country. It's time to build again, big time. It's time to build a Canada you can afford, with the middle class tax cut and the elimination, which we've already done with pricey consumer tax.
We have just 9 days to go until the election year. But for those who want to cast their ballot before April 28th, advance votes are located across the country. Registered voters can go to their assigned polling station at 9 a.m. and 11 p.m. until April 21st. Your voter information card will tell you where your assigned station is for advance voting. For more updates and continued coverage of the election, log on to our website, breakingnews.ca, at any time. Canadian contractors are seeing a decline in business as homeowners second guess for renovation work given economic uncertainty. But as File Venom reports, industry players believe now might be the best time to shine with more tradespeople who will keep their jobs.
It's an investment in a number of homeowners across the country for second guessing. While some of the starting renovation for the spring and summer, contractors are seeing customers respond to the market behind some commitments.
I see a change in behavior almost 100% from all the clients that I'm speaking with, in terms of their feeling concern that wasn't there, before this whole thing with the tariffs.
Well, guys, since a number of states are choosing to reduce their rental budgets for projects, and the trade war will be costs. Question: what do you think now might be the time to get a job done with the availability of skilled workers and the lack of commitment from customers?
Anything that you're ready to do quickly. It's actually pretty good, right? The prices are what they are.
U.S. tariffs on aluminum and steel, as well as retaliatory tariffs, to have an impact on a number of products needed for cost of innovation. There's optimism that some supplies, like lumber, and strong domestic supply chain, could help balance the scales. So the industry holds that now with this small renovation done, it's possible for trade relations in the U.S. which is more further and so the project to be completed very quickly.
In a normal market, they think they're there. I think that all of them are actually running contractors to do my work. It's a little different right now, so they're ready to go.
Some contractors are now looking to change some suppliers. The U.S. has increased the estimate of closures.
They're expecting the price to go up 1,500 per factor, depending on the size of the project.
They say they're looking for alternative options, domestic solutions. Good. Take some time to file them with
The U.S. Supreme Court has temporarily halted the deportation of the group of Venezuelans in immigration custody. The court's order issued on Saturday directs the Trump administration not to remove any of the detainees including further notice. The move comes as civil liberties group challenged the U.S. government's plan to deport the men with the accused of being part of a Venezuelan gang. Trump has previously sent alleged gang members to a prison in El Salvador, invoking the 1798 Group of Enemies Act. The law gives the president power to order deportations without due process. A temporary ceasefire has been declared in Ukraine for Easter. Russian President Vladimir Putin says fighting will pause on Saturday evening and on Sunday. He says on account of humanitarian reasons. Putin warned that troops will remain on island for potential violations. The ceasefire comes as fighting continues in the region. Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky responded to Putin's unilateral decision, saying that Russian drones remain in the skies on Saturday, showing Moscow's true attitude towards Easter and Putin. According to Russia's defense ministry, Russia and Ukraine caught 277 prisoners Saturday, the world's largest exchange yet. Iran and the United States are holding a second round of talks in Europe with the Islamic Republic's controversial nuclear program. This follows a meeting between the US and Western Witkoff and Iranian Foreign Minister Abbas Araghchi. They met with Oman leaders in Moscow last week. Joining us now to discuss the European stand is Alex Atanka from the United States team. Alex, it's wonderful to have you on. Alex, the negotiations have resumed after quite a long time. Help us understand at this stage what are the main sticking points and what both sides hope to achieve.
Right, if you don't mind, you can quick the meeting that was held in the country of Oman in the city of Muscat last Saturday, April 12th, was the first time that Iran and the United States actually sat down and said, if you will, there's this is nice because we were closest into face in 7 years since going back to 2018, the first Trump, the first President Trump inauguration in 2015. So last week the ice was broken. Today, a week later, the question is how many can they confidence building measures can be rid of the basic parameters for the cost of country. That remains interesting. That's the big campaign with today.
And that's the thing, because there is some optimism, is that fair to say, following that first round of talks in Oman, both sides described it as positive. Should we be expecting any sort of breakthrough in Oman?
So you have to forgive me for this. I'm so cautious. At least I'm quick. There's definitely some optimism. Maybe it's not a problem. I think the issue I talked about more or less should be pretty straightforward. The United States can have a civilian nuclear program. That would be the largest way. The question is, people believe that the American side will go in the opposition, talking about other issues like Iran and the nuclear program. If that happens, then I have no idea what the talks will be.
Yeah, fair enough. We've learned to up the and the other aspect of this that I want to ask you about is the Donald Trump phenomenon, because the US actually pulled out of the nuclear pact with Iran during Donald Trump's first term as president. At the time, Trump was very outspoken about the issue. Typically, help us recap that. What was the objections then, and how have things changed?
So Donald Trump was seriously against the bombing of Israel in 2015 because he said it's really taking fear of the danger of Iran going in the way. The sunset clauses seems Iran at some point in the future decided to recognize. So he walked away, and Iran was able to take part of the policy. And we saw in his first term, even the Biden administration were unable to do what's different than the Biden administration achieved. So right now, the Trump administration has and they wanted to slide it like this beautiful anxiety and start and this change wanted to do it. But Donald Trump said it, but no one. And if that's the case, which they really decided to say that the parents should live with, then it was really a question of verifying the brand of company. It is about the technicality. As
And Trump also, has threatened to attack Iran if the US introduced and African certificate. What message would you say this sends to the region, especially in light of the fact that we've seen Iran's support to military organizations in Gaza, in Lebanon, in Yemen?
Yeah, no, look, President Trump obviously wants to avoid any of these negotiations. We've seen the deployment of lots of American military platforms to the region. That seems to really Iran's attention. That's not necessarily our attention. The companies, we have to remember, President Donald Trump is something entirely North Korea about warning against war and it finding it to be costly, finding it to be counterproductive to American interests. So I really don't think much of what's going to go to Iran, but I do think he wants to get Iran's attention. And the last thing we need is trying to make Donald Trump look bad at this whole affair because, Donald Trump virtually likes to put good wants to be good. It's not the Iran business on how much beatability these processes.
Of course, we should talk about the Iran side of things because they've maintained that its nuclear program is for peaceful civilian purposes. Consistently, Iran has refused to consider a nuclear rollback. How do you see this playing out during these conversations?
No, look, the Iranians are doing that, but they're sitting on top of a very angry population, for 90 million people. Basically, they have to be very clear that they hate the regime. So the regime is in that place, the economy is on the brink. The sort of activities in the region for the last year have taken blow after blow with what's happened to Hamas, Hezbollah, Saudi, so Iraq is not in a good place. So actually, in many ways, you could argue this is an optimal moment for you to sit down, talk to this American president. At the end of the day, it's not a regime change. He doesn't care who rules in Iraq. There's no democratic strategy. So Iran is Iran. Regardless of Trump's ability to right now, I can come to a lot of factors that actually suggest this is not about only the United States have to deal with this kind of place that the U.S. Congress sitting on these sides and still on the side. And then take the photos from there and avoid very possible war that those people with past experience in Afghanistan and Iran is a perfectly great in terms of the potential adversary for the United States.
Yeah, just a final point. Also, that you have the recent visit there. What role do you see the Army playing in the security and even as he's trying to
So I hear that it's linked to immediately to the way it was in basically as a possible war. As you said, if the conversation takes place, you start talking about what Iran is doing in the future. Iran is the South Pole where people talk about. Then I will just be one of the points on many points. That's depending on where you stand, where you support this diplomatic track,
What's to watch in that front, Alex? We really appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Alex, the time back. Stay with us. We have more news coming up after the show.
Your day starts right here.
And that's what place to be in the morning.
We've got the new GV to make that team favorite approach.
The experts you trust.
More exclusives than anywhere else.
And your first stop for the biggest entertainment store.
The morning show, weekdays on Global. Check this out. The phone is the key.
Like you, the redesigned Tucson doesn't stand. You got places to go and stories to tell. Sleeping like a baby, thank goodness for baby mode. And with more than 9 out of 10 Tucsons sold in the last decade still on the road, Rod keeps you going. G Adventures presents the Ginux collection, where adventure meets compute. Now featuring 54 premium active trips across 32 countries. Adventure awaits for today.
Now let's go to experts and find out the next line. I now move one with my socks on. There's a one-time to tell the truth is check the commercial.
Talk shows and game shows on TV.
Somebody else's stupid story that comes along.
And it means if you are the champion, start the clock.
You've got a real damn interesting song next to you. Cash cow! Good for $50.
Canada under threat to sovereignty on the ballot. Join us for live coverage of consequential federal elections. When the central ballot question for many Canadians is who is best to handle Canada's relationship with the U.S. and who's best equipped to lead Canada on the issues affecting Canadians.
Join Driver News on election night as Canada casts its vote.
Who will Canadians choose to stand up for Canada? Watch and follow Global News, Precision Canada, live on election night. Another legal battle has erupted over a mine that was the site of one of the worst environmental disasters in history. A First Nation is challenging a plan to expand the Mount Holly mine. As Aaron Carter reports, it highlights the growing challenge of reconciling economic development and Indigenous rights.
More than a decade ago, an unprecedented environmental disaster permanently altering the landscape around the Mount Holly Mine. Our group, the Capsule First Nation, is challenging a county to the mine owner, Imperial Metals, to increase the height of the dam at the tailings pond.
It's important that the province does their due diligence and do an environmental assessment.
The court challenge has brought up a delicate set of issues for the provincial government, including promising faster approvals for critical and precious mineral projects. And yet, many of these projects are ending up in court, challenged by Indigenous groups. Premier says it's time to chart a new course forward, giving Indigenous groups equity stakes in these projects.
Through this participation, we have alignment between ownership of the project, redemption of the project. Then that means that everybody is wanting to get it approved and get it done as quickly as possible.
First Nation argued there is a constitutionally protected right for governments to consult. Some lawyers argue governments have taken that duty too far, paralyzing decision making.
Speaker of Canada is actually giving quite clear guidance on what the community consultant does and does not include. These are very important. We can't disregard it, but it's, makes clear that the Canada government must make decisions, and specifically says that they have to reasonably balance Indigenous and non-Indigenous interests.
The BC Mining Association says projects in the approval process are worth tens of billions of dollars to BC's economy. These projects, often in remote corners of the province, offering enormous benefits to local communities.
Two long-standing mines move ahead without some form of partnership with the nation whose land that mining project is so.
With the threat of tariffs, the real possibility of a deep, long-lasting recession, economic arguments for more resource extraction will be made more forceful. Indigenous concerns of scope, environmental impact, no intention of revoking their rights, setting up the potential for
Gender-based violence is on the rise in BC. The fact that housing conflict was an epidemic, but many survivors say the government could and should do more to help survivors find safe housing. Carly Zargar reports.
When he came out, he came out with just 2 suitcases just out with him. He didn't have any money.
A frantic rush to escape danger, intertwined with the fear of not knowing where to go.
He decided, I can't stay here because I'm very sure that he will come back and the consequences will be worse.
This mother, whose identity may be concealed from her and her daughter's safety, says the abuse she suffered at the hands of a partner extended far beyond physical.
All the other kind of abuse with mental abuse
Their search for safety leading to the doors of BC Housing, which was seeing excruciating long wait times, leaving survivors fleeing violence in limbo with little hope to find long-term housing.
They are saying, okay, because of the
should show right now on the top of the list, but when you can see that they're still in the uses of the
Transitional shelters offer temporary refuge for women and families fleeing violence. Person can stay up to 30 days in first stage housing, 18 months for second stage, and the difficult task of finding permanent housing.
According to previous years, there were a lot more people that were denied services this year in terms of getting into transition housing. And then we also see more backlog on the long-term housing as well.
A recent study by the Business Society of Transition Houses shows there are backlogs at every stage. Those barriers to find a permanent place to live, having a trickle-down effect for people fleeing for their lives.
Not only are we seeing women in our housing not get into long-term housing than those registered abusers, but we're also not seeing all those cases where we're not leaving those abusers in the first place.
Common sense, states working to create more transitional housing spaces and providers have the flexibility to push beyond the prescribed state limits. The heart of the problem, shortage of long-term housing across BC.
We know there's a shortage. There's a shortage of housing in our communities. And we know from this past that if there's an individual who is lost in a violent situation, often housing is a barrier for them to operate.
A survivor we spoke to spent 6 months in first stage and more than 2 years in second. The search for a permanent home often ended in landlords turning her away for being a single mom.
If you found something that you could leave and the price was matched with your income, still the landlord
BC's housing crisis reaching a new horrifying level when it comes to finding permanent housing.
this is one of the biggest things that can needs, right? I think we come from that because of the relationship. We just have to do something different.
Pushing victims and their children back into the hands of their abusers. Daria Zargar, Global News.
Private is Living Television's original true crime documentary series. On this week's episode, a highly respected Israeli chef was recently criticizing the Philippines restaurant who was found to free. The complicated true evidence to two suspects and a Tansi and Pineapple, Nancy Hicks, she shares Chateau Tunes. So alarm was activated, you attempted to just be broken in.
I never wanted to wish it doesn't make sense to have a person truly as a victim.
It was just a long thought. You were harmlessly it was just so just so you never think that anything like that would happen to you. Shadow Tunes airs on Global News on Sunday, 8 p.m.
So check his post right away because you're not getting any response from him. I fell 2 heartbeats and then nothing. They call time of death not too long after.
And in your mind, that's basically it was just like a mom who been dropped on my timeline.
My Mr. would be assaulted and stabbed and ultimately killed. It didn't make any sense.
You never think that anything like that would ever happen to you until it does.
Somebody unbelievable.
And is your liner the right liner for black leaves? Poise locks in wetness and stays drier. Switch to Poise and see for yourself.
Global News is proud to be part of the GTA.
We know the issues that impact you the most.
We understand your needs and what needs to change.
Because, like you, we know the GTA.
Our trusted team delivers more in-depth analysis than is more accountability.
And covers more of the issues that matter to you.
Stay up to date with Global News at 5.
And more local news at 6.
Keeping the GTA informed and connected.
This weekend is being marked a very striking day in Bolivia with sand sculptures in the desert. Nearly 200 artists from across South America have gathered in Oruro to carve biblical scenes into the dunes. Now it's 19 p.m. and the tradition continues to draw large crowds, turning the landscape into a living canvas.
The Bible turns the people in and out in canvas. Videos that have been viewed millions of times, things from the top way on in China, which is not what the European creators say, but ends up as that story.
We recognize this style, this one. Of course you do.
A viral TikTok trend undercuts the fashions of most luxurious brands by claiming China is the original equipment manufacturer for OEM.
For the past 30 years, we have been the OEM factory for most of the luxury brands around the world. Gucci, Prada, Coach, Louis Vuitton.
Your maybe Italian Gucci 80% come from Chinese factory. They just have a label in Europe to make it have a price of 10 times.
High-end brands dispute that. The news says it makes 55% of its outfits in its own exclusive workshops in France. Louis Vuitton says its leather goods are exclusively produced in its workshops in France, Spain, Italy, and the US, while Gucci says 95% of Gucci suppliers are in Italy. Experts tell Global News the truth is murky.
A lot of fashion brands, luxury down to fast fashion, they produce in China, and they have for years.
Dana Thomas says some high-end goods are made, or they say, but otherwise. Many components and production comes from all over the world, including China.
Price depends on how much glue you use versus selling.
We actually have seen items that were very hot brands, brands being produced at exactly the same factories. It's very high.
Canada does have requirements for clothing labels, stating the country's origin of goods is the country in which the goods were substantially manufactured.
But what is substantial and what is not is a bit unclear.
Roland says it's the same around the world.
For high-end items, you basically pay for the label and for the reputation.
Roland says brands could easily dispel any doubts about where things are made by being transparent. And also ensure other conditions are being met. He points to Italian authorities accusing Dior of running sweatshops in Italy. Dior said the supplier took the truth from them.
They know it is all about precision. It's all about being perfect. It's all about being excellent. So they can't say, I've lost control of my supply chain.
And above, Global News. This is Global News.
Hello and thank you for watching Global News on this Saturday, April 19. I hope you got out of it. And I may be seeing you and popcorn to talk to today. Long weekend, longer lines. Canadians cast their ballots on the second day of advance polling as parties enter the final stretch of the campaigns. An Easter truce, Russian President Vladimir Putin unilaterally announces a temporary ceasefire in Ukraine. Trump's immigration crackdown hits a snag. The US Supreme Court closes the deportation of Venezuelan migrants from the 19th century Puerto Rico. The leader, Mark Carney, has released his party's election platform, laying out $25 billion in spending for next year. Still making a fourth millions of pitching what they call a fourth plan protect Canada's future, promising a path out of potential economic turmoil to live a Trump status.
The 67-page platform puts some details on the broad plan the Liberal leader Mark Carney has been talking about much this campaign. His plan to protect the Canadian economy from Donald Trump's tariff threats. And indeed, the word Trump shows up 8 times in this document, while Carney's chief political rival, Pierre Poilievre, he's just mentioned 6 times. Now, those plans include reducing internal trade barriers, building trade corridors, and improving energy independence. There are plans to build more homes, plans to include skills training for workers, and to include more doctors, and commitments to the league to maintain national welfare, national dental care, and a $10 a child care plans. The platform also contains some not yet announced promises and things you'll hear about in the last week of the campaign, including a commitment to spend $4 billion building new hospitals and community medical clinics. There are new promises to give personal support workers an $1,100 a year refundable tax credit, and there's new funding for mental health. Also, some new promises for rural transit and for other major infrastructure projects. The cost of all these new initiatives that the Liberals are proposing adds up to $130 billion over the next 4 years. So the biggest of which is defense spending, an increase of $19 billion over that time period, and the Liberals say that extra $19 billion that would take us up to that NATO target of spending 2% national GDP on defense. Now, that would be offset by $20 billion in tariff revenues, of course, that's a tax that Canadians pay, as well as $32 billion in savings. Economy members are saying they can overhaul the way government works to find those $32 billion in savings and figure out ways to make government cheap. Thank you.
More questions are being raised about the lack of discussion around Indigenous issues in the election campaign. Some wonder about the commitment to reconciliation among the federal parties and feel excluded from the political process. Bill Carpenter reports.
Among the monuments that the Crofton Courts include dedicated to people who made a difference stands one honoring a person Indigenous women are celebrating this week.
Indigenous people have to fight for their own rights. And this was exactly what Angela Key did.
The Indigenous activist from the Mohawk community of Bunawali was largely responsible for changes made to the Indian Act 4 decades ago.
Mary talks earlier, Mohawk women that married and non-Indigenous men lost their status.
The Act allowed Indigenous men to keep their status when they married non-Indigenous partners. It was not so for Indigenous women like early.
If you're not an Indigenous man, well, you're going to take away your rights to be an Indigenous woman.
Losing their status meant losing part of their identity and culture, many point out.
From African communities, so they just become a civilian.
Early fought this policy for 2 decades. In 1985, her campaign finally led to the passing of Bill C-31, which amended the Indian Act and got rid of the policy. As Indigenous communities mark the 40th anniversary, they point out that the repercussions are still being felt.
There's many people who are still searching for their families. Even
Indigenous communities caution that despite Bill C-31 and other things need to reclaim their rights, much work is still left to do towards reconciliation. So they wonder why issues that affect them have largely been left to the sidelines during the federal election campaign.
we don't vote. And there's a reason.
The reason? They feel politicians largely focus on people who they believe can get them elected.
I think as first we should do our rights, titles in this country, and it needs to be discussed. And we need to go forward with the priorities that are in the countries. Those parties are learning to do.
Some Indigenous groups say that they have reached out to the parties, but not all have replied.
It's unfortunate that we're doing this.
They encourage community members to vote in the hope that in the end, for some things, it will be up to activists like me to ask Sterling to push for change. Phil Carpenter, Global News, Montreal.
Whatever happens in the days ahead, it isn't going to change Anne White's vote. The home rule is seen as we cast a ballot on Friday and in France vote. She says not voting is never an option. to acknowledge big issues which he sees facing Canada.
It's not in your book right now. How does it look like?
But you can look at it, doesn't mean my people. And I have to look at the younger people. I may not be able to look at the little bit, but then I have to look at everybody.
The university uses a walk-on by 128 more than half an hour at the filling station.
With the event was open this weekend, meetings ready to do anything are mobilizing across the country for Drive to Vote, campaigning both in person and by social media to encourage allies to the community to think outside themselves before heading to the ballot box. John James at 10.
For some of us, it's not just votes, it's allies who are on the line.
Elder is one of over 250 Canadian drag performers who are championing the Drive to Vote campaign, all coming together in the face of regular faces seeping into Canadian politics and south of the border.
I know still a lot of things go wrong, at least we're not in the United States, but we clearly got people that are focusing on things that are going on, close to the border, and how we can be here.
The campaign is taking place through merch sales, in-person events, and across social media, with their website drive2vote.ca providing links to voter registry and info specific to trans and gender diverse voters, which Loire says she has seen threatened in her time performing.
People from white supremacist groups, we've had people from anti-trans groups, we've had people from politicians that are actively trying to take away trans healthcare for not just youth, but for everyone.
Predators of More Love says it's not just what's being said, but what political leaders are failing to acknowledge.
The lack of transparency and willingness of our political leaders to actually stand by the community. They only stand by them when it's popular, when it's convenient.
And that those in privileged positions need to stand with those whose rights are affected, even if they themselves are not directly impacted.
It speaks to the ability of line an elephant in the room that if you've never had to fight for your right, then that is a right in itself. And many people are not privileged to that right. And as Canadians, we stand proudly, we sing the anthem, we hold our head up high, and yet we still have a lot of marginalized groups within our communities.
All in an effort to engage voters from less marginalized groups to use their ballot to protect the human rights of others, well past election day. Johnny James, Global News, Fredericton.
For more updates and continued coverage of the Canadian election, you can log on to our website, globalnews.ca, at Arlington. One of the effects of Trump's tariff war has created a hidden and serious problem for small and medium-sized businesses. Accessing loans has become very difficult, and as Andy explains, it's impacting many industries and may also be a sign of continuing recession. Steps from the Rogers Center in the Cement Tower, the Crete Public House is a full house in summer. The quiet season starts in colder months.
The business price out a little bit after September, October, depending how well they're able to do that.
A small one helps smooth the transition to peak season.
Doesn't have to be the end of the week or one for a while. It's just how much money is cash flow.
Credit is the lifeblood that keeps many businesses running, needed for big orders or unexpected expenses.
Investors are always something that needs repair or needs replacement, particularly for
The tariff uncertainty has created a credit squeeze, particularly for small and medium-sized businesses.
access to credit is important and increases in interest rates is closer to where inflation.
Credit crunch takes time, but recession is coming.
We're always concerns are starting. Small businesses are failing.
The number of inquiries fintech alternative lender merchant growth has fielded since Trump took office has soared. Most of the loans it offers are about $50,000, some as much as $800,000.
It's not all doing real conversations with people who just have capital. People are being very, very smart.
Trump's trade war and threat of more levies have driven up costs and forced businesses to pivot away from the U.S. market. Behind, tariffs on steel and aluminum drive up the price for tall beer cans by up to 15 cents. Other items, like takeout containers, are subject to tarifflation too.
It's like they say, they can do it over.
Nelson says he hasn't felt this much uncertainty since the COVID era, but he's hopeful
April, the Buy Canadian movement translates to a surge of local visitors, even as he braces for a potential economic downturn.
The first thing that people think is only the biggest empathy when times are bad.
And Viola is Toronto. Two BC companies have taken up what is hopefully the future of Wi-Fi fiber. A heavy load drone technology would allow fires to be fought from the air at night and in remote areas. As Paul Johnson reports, it can cause a new era of innovation in fighting fires.
If you've ever seen the aerial attack against a wildfire, know it's some of the most challenging and expensive flying done anywhere. But what if new technology could bring another capability to the fight?
This technology is what is needed by wildfire agencies and helicopter operators to supplement the traditional ways of suppressing wildfires using technology.
Check out the Thunderwatch, a heavy-lift drone built and currently flying at speed. Losing his own route to a wildfire in 2023, let's see aerospace engineer Alex DeLaurier envisioned a new wildfire attack method based on that Swedish drone fitted out with specialized sensors and software.
The plan is for one operator to be able to supervise a small 5 machines able to fly autonomously.
As it stands now, wildfire fighting from the air is extreme. Availability of aircraft usually limited to daylight hours.
Firestorm is the first to market autonomous drones on production.
The Firestorm concept would be a continuous nighttime attack with drones that's made of BC software to coordinate the movements. That drone can fly for 2 hours and carry 400 liters of water, comparable to what human piloted helicopters do. Wildfire fighting groups are already excited at the possibilities.
Finding ways to get water to remote places quickly without helicopters close nearby is something we want to look out for.
Firestorm expects to be testing the system for the rest of this year. Drones could make their BC debut the summer of 2026. Drone support groups.
After the break, a look at the Cross Canada podcast series.
Global News is proud to be part of the GTA.
We know the issues that impact you the most.
We understand your needs and what needs to change.
Because, like you, we know the GTA.
Our trusted team delivers more in-depth analysis, demands more accountability,
And covers more of the issues that matter to you.
Stay up to date with Global News at 5.
And more local news at 6.
Keeping the GTA informed and connected. The challenge of installing these gates is not too dissimilar from trying to move a couch into your apartment. I think if you can operate into your home. If you've ever asked yourself, how did they do that? The hydroelectric generators will generate the equivalent of 18 nuclear plants. We've got the answers. We are listening to realizing the book on how to design large projects, the most inspiring man-made marvels.
I want to see it to believe it. Well, I actually saw it and I believe it.
Your day starts right here.
And that's a what place to be in the morning.
We've got the news you need to make that Team Canada approach.
The experts you trust.
More exclusives than anywhere else.
And your first stop for the biggest entertainment stories.
Morning show, weekdays on Global. So check his post right away because I'm not getting any response from him. I felt 2 heartbeats and then they called kind of there too long after. I didn't really back there.
You mind this crazy news that it was just like a bomb had been dropped on my entire life.
My understanding everyone would be assaulted and stabbed and ultimately killed. It didn't make any sense.
You never think that anything like that would ever happen to you until it does.
Coinbase, somebody on Global.
Identified as ceasefire between the Fed and Ukraine for Easter. Russian President Vladimir Putin says fighting will pause from Saturday evening until midnight Sunday. He says on account of humanitarian reasons. Putin warned that troops will remain on fire for potential violations. The ceasefire comes as fighting continues in the region. Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky responded to Putin's unilateral decision, saying that Russian drones remained in Ukrainian skies on Saturday, showing Moscow's true attitude towards eastern and Baltic people. According to Russia's defense ministry, Russia and Ukraine swapped 277 prisoners Saturday in the war's largest exchange yet. Iran and the United States are going through a second round of talks over Tehran's nuclear program. The meeting in Rome follows the first round, which was held in Oman last week. Foreign Minister Abbas Araghchi with the Iranian delegation, while Anwar Steve Witkoff and the US team. The two officials are negotiating indirectly through Omani mediators. US President Donald Trump has repeatedly threatened Iran of military strikes in case the deal is not reached. He previously pulled out of the 2015 deal to destroy Iran and limit its nuclear activities. Trump said it did too little to stop Iran's potential pathway to owning nuclear weapons. The US Supreme Court has temporarily halted the deportation of a group of Venezuelans in immigration custody. The court's order, issued on Saturday, directs the Trump administration not to remove any of the detainees until further notice. The move comes as a civil liberties group challenged the US government's plan to deport the men who are being accused of being part of a Venezuelan gang. Trump has previously sent alleged gang members to a prison in El Salvador, invoking the 1798 Open Enemies Act. The law gives the president power to order deportations without due process. Thousands gathered in fear and sorrow at the vigil Friday evening after mass shooting at Florida State University in Tallahassee. 2 people were killed and 6 hurt in the attack, which took place on Thursday. Wendy Gillette reports on the investigation.
The Florida State University band provided comfort with familiar songs at the vigil. Some of the thousands in attendance brought flowers and leaned on each other as they grieved the victims of the shooting.
This is the kind of trauma that changes people, changes the place.
The victims were identified as 45-year-old Tyrone Trava, an executive for the campus food vendor, and 57-year-old Robert Morales, a high school football coach who worked in the dining services department. Madison Haskins is one of the injured.
The minute I got shot, I remember my parents telling me, I just didn't quite get it.
The gunman was identified as 20-year-old Felix Ickner, a junior at the university and the son of a local sheriff's deputy. Police say they confronted him within minutes of the attack near the Street Union building, shooting and injuring him. He remains hospitalized, and police say his recovery will be lengthy.
At this point, there does not appear to be any connection at all between the shooter and any of the victims.
Classes were canceled Friday. Though some students returned to the campus to retrieve their belongings left behind during the shooting.
It's definitely really sad that seeing people come together, like put on flowers and just really reflect on loved ones and what we really need to appreciate.
The memorial on the FSU campus keeps growing. Wendy July, CBS News.
You are having a great Easter weekend for hikers that are working this time, and for many Easterlies, usually that spring is in full swing, but in Canada, some areas did see their spring-like conditions, others not so much. Let's start with Western Canada, where we were just seeing temperatures into the low 20s in Alberta yesterday. The cold front moving through still brings a switch up to zero. We're talking temperatures, but also changing precipitation. Snow expected for the Rockies, and eventually that snow makes its way to southern Alberta heading to Sunday. Some of these accumulations could be upwards of 20 centimeters around foothills, also around areas near the border of the United States. For those communities that are seeing that snow, of course, accumulations could be possible in other regions. Areas like Calgary, 4 or 5 centimeters could be possible by Monday, and then there are, as we mentioned, for those other areas that are impacted. On this side of the country, Friday brought some unsettled weather with some thunderstorms pushing into Ontario, with some lightning, thunder, and along with that, risk of hail and some windy conditions. The systems are going to become turbulent in the next few days, and Atlantic Canada is going to feel the wild ride. There will be periods of snow, could reach 15 centimeters of departure Newfoundland on Sunday, but it won't be just that. Sometimes we see some damaging wind potential on Sunday, gusts upwards of 80 kilometers per hour, and that brings a risk of
10 degrees for 11 degrees in St. John's, Newfoundland, 2 in Lapland City, 11 in Ottawa with the range of conditions, 18 in Ottawa, 18 in Windsor with a 20-degree range in Toronto, 6 in Thunder Bay. Here we are seeing the gradual warm-ups finally extending into the eastern parts of the eastern sections of the prairies into central regions as well, 13 in Saskatoon, down to 9 degrees in Calgary, already 13 in Edmonton, 10 in Prince George, 13 in Vancouver. Stay with us. We have more news coming up after this short break.
Your day starts right here.
Another one place to begin the morning.
We've got the news you need. Make that Team Canada Post.
The experts you trust.
More exclusives than anywhere else.
And your first stop for the biggest entertainment stories.
The morning show, weekdays on Global. Now let's go to experts and find out the next line. I never make love with a stop sign. The one time you tell the truth is generally commercial.
Talk shows and game shows on TV.
Somebody else's cooking script.
If you are the champion, start the clock.
We've got a real damn interested in some of those too. Cash grab. Good for $50. Global News is proud to be part of the TCF.
We know the issues that impact you the most.
We understand your needs and what needs to change.
Because, like you, we know the TCF.
Our trusted team delivers more in-depth analysis, demands more accountability.
And covers more of the issues that matter to you.
Stay up to date with Global News at 5.
And more local news at 6.
Keeping the TCA informed and connected.
There's a lot of noise out there. What is real? What is false? CBC News is here for Canadians, sifting through the noise to help you make your best choice. Because this is your vote. Canada votes in 2025. Canada under threat, sovereignty on the ballot. Join us for live coverage of a consequential federal election. When the simple ballot question for many Canadians is who is best to handle Canada's relationship with the U.S. and who's best equipped to lead Canada on the issues affecting Canadians. Join Global News on election night as Canada casts its vote. Who will Canadians choose to stand up for Canada? Watch and follow Global News Decision Canada live on election night. Easter weekend has been marked in very striking ways in Bolivia with sand sculptures in the desert. Nearly 200 artists from across South America have gathered in Peru to carve beautiful scenes of the dreams. Now in its 19th year, the tradition continues to draw large crowds, turning landscape into a living canvas. Cheerleading is a growing sport around the world, and now an Edmonton teacher has written a children's book about the lucidity and popularity of it. It will still tell that story. A is for Airbus. Lexi Friedman reads from the debut children's book, C is for Cheer. It covers terms, skills, characteristics, of children. It's a subject that Crawford as a school teacher is passionate about. She's been involved in cheer as an athlete and a coach for nearly 2 decades. It's just running, racing, sports events that she plays in her heart. For Friedman, it's much more than just an alphabet book about cheer. It's a chance to educate people about the growing sport. I want them to know just how much cheer has evolved at this year's team from sort of the sideline of this year and how it is now. And she wants her young readers to be introduced to all aspects. Find their place in the sport, find their place in the sport, and feel represented by the sport, so it's awesome. Friedman started writing C is for Cheer 3 years ago, and it was published in October. It was very cool. Yeah, and it's arts and real. Athletes, students, and the school, and talking about it. He says it's been received quite well here in Edmonton and is starting to spread around Alberta and into BC. There was one so much. So it's really going to kind of thing. She hopes to write more books and says this experience has been rewarding. Putting words in my mouth. It's a really cool process. Nicole Stewart, Google News.
beloved Canadian rock band founded in the 70s will not be forgotten after a special gesture from the Quebec City Councillors. They renamed one of the city's roadways to Captain Dermot Boulevard. On the moped, the band has achieved international success in touring across Canada and the US. Bowie Yang returns to the big screen this weekend in the romantic flick The Wedding Banquet. Todd James has more on that and other films in this week's edition of Minute Happy Movie.
The director Ang Lee's 1993 romantic comedy, The Wedding Banquet, stars Oscar nominee Lily Gladstone, Kelly Marie Tran, and Saturday Night Live's Bowen Yang as lovers and friends, with plans for a green card marriage to hide a wealthier sexuality from a grandmother who holds his inheritance in her hands.
It's for the cost of helping new couples stay together.
Who is in Korea to get the future granddaughter-in-law? What are we supposed to do with that one? Clear the house. There's so much like in Riverdale. It's a heartfelt dramedy and takes on serious tones with Joe Chin, part of an impressive cast. 3 out of 5. Steve Buscemi is a retired serial killer named Coleman, who convinces a struggling writer to tell the story of his chosen vocation in psychotherapy. The shallow tale of a writer who decided to write about a serial killer. John Magaro plays Keenan, threatened with divorce by his wife Susie, played by Britt Lauer, from Severance. He tells her that Coleman is a marriage counselor.
That's the way it's unexpected. My husband and marriage counselor to our home, marriage counselor. You are doing suicide.
A dark, comedic take on marriage with Buscemi as stand-up. 4 out of 5. In Frank's Broker, the night, 2 siblings' lives diverge when one retreats to a soon-to-be shut-down online game, while the other, a drug dealer, falls in love and crosses a dangerous gang. A gritty, fictional story that deftly moves between a virtual universe and a harsh and brutal reality. 4 out of 5. And in a world where monsters are being imprisoned, a homeless ghost searches for her uncle and gets help from a new family in Alec and her monster team. A predictable story with respectable animation and charming characters. 2 kernels of popcorn out of 5. And that's a minute after movies for Global News. I'm Todd James.
You are watching the news. Next, we might just start.
This is Global News.
Hello, and thank you for watching Global News on this Saturday, April 19th. I'm Nana Bhatt. And I'm making here today. Long weekend, along the lines, Canadian fast advance on the second day of France polling as parties enter the final stretch of the candidates. Trump's immigration crackdown puts a stand in the US Supreme Court closes the protection of Venezuelan migrants from the 19th century. Efforts for a peace deal with Iran and the US with the second round of talks around the rapidly advancing program. With a little over a week left until the election day, several party leaders are back on the campaign trail as voters cast their ballots on day 2 of advanced voting. Liberal leader Mark Carney was in the Greater Toronto area when he released his full platform. Listen to what he had to say.
Today, I'm proud to launch Canada's our plan to unite, to protect and build. And this comprehensive plan is defined by 4 principles. The first is to unite, because in a time of crisis, In a time when President Trump is attacking our economy, is trying to do this, there is nothing more important than unity. Our second principle is security. Because in a more dangerous and divided world, it's essential to secure our borders, to secure our sovereignty, and to secure our country. Securing our economy against the threat of terrorists is only the most immediate priority. To secure our nation over the longer term, we have to do much more. We need to rebuild, rearm, and reinvest in Canadian resources. Our third principle is to protect. We all know Canada is not American. We are our own country. We have our own unique identity, history, culture, and way of life. And our government will always stand up for what makes Canada. The fourth principle of our plan is good. We used to build things. It's time to build again. It's time. It's time. It's time to build a Canada you can afford with the middle class tax cut and the elimination, which we've already done, of the divisive consumer.
We have just 9 days to go until election day, but for those who want to cast their ballot before April 28th, the ballot votes are open across the country. Registered voters can go to their assigned polling station between 9 a.m. and 9 p.m. until April 21st. Your voter information card is and leave regular assigned station is for advance voting. For more updates and continued coverage of the federal election, you can log on to our website, logannews.ca, at any time. Canadian contractors are seeing a decline in business as homeowners second guess plans for renovations given economic uncertainty. But as Bob Benning reports, industry players believe now might be the best time for some, with more tradespeople available to complete the job.
It's an investment in a number of homeowners across the country are second guessing. While some were thinking of starting renovations over the spring summer, contractors would see customers want the uncertain market with uncertain commitments.
I see a change in behavior almost 100% from all the clients that I'm speaking with, in terms of their feeling of concern that wasn't there, before this whole thing with the tariffs.
Or guys, since there's a number of clients are choosing to reduce their rental budgets with projects in order to trade more with the final costs. Questionable. For the industry to say that might be the time to get a job done, with the availability of skilled workers, the lack of commitment to customers.
Anything that you're right to buy quickly, the timing's pretty good, right? The things are what they are.
U.S. tariffs on aluminum and steel, on those retaliatory tariffs, are having an impact on products needed for innovation. There's optimism that such supplies like lumber and the supply chain could help balance the scales. So the industry echoing that now is just to get small innovations done as soon as possible. To trade relations further, so the project.
Yeah, in the normal market, when they think you're very they can't get a hold of any renegade or any contractors to do it. It's a little different right now, so if you're ready to go, it's time to pull the trigger.
Some contractors are now looking to change some suppliers. The U.S. legislature is estimating proposals.
They're expecting the price to go up by 1,500 per $5,000, depending on the size of the project.
They say that alternative options, solutions, take some time. Then holding it.
The U.S. Supreme Court has temporarily halted the deportation of order issued on Saturday, where it's the Trump administration not to remove any of the detainees from the White House. The move comes as the civil liberties group challenge the U.S. government's plan to deport them and refuse to depart a Venezuelan gang. Trump has previously sent alleged gang members to prison in El Salvador, invoking the 1798 Alien Enemies Act. The law gives the president power to order deportations without due process. A temporary ceasefire has been declared in Ukraine for Easter. Russian President Vladimir Putin says fighting will pause. The study will end until midnight Sunday. He says on account of humanitarian reasons. Putin warns the troops will remain on high alert for potential violations. The ceasefire comes as fighting continues in the region. Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky responded to Putin's unilateral decision, saying that Russian drones remain in Ukrainian skies on Saturday, showing Moscow's true attitude towards Easter and the Russian people. According to Russia's defense ministry, Russia and Ukraine swapped 277 prisoners Saturday, the world's largest exchange yet. Iran and the United States are holding the second round of talks in Rome over the restart of this controversial nuclear program. This follows a meeting between the US and Western Witkoff, the Iranian foreign minister Abbas Araghchi, who met with Imam mediators in Muscat custody. Trying to discuss stop where things stand with Alex Atanka from the Middle East. Alex is on the another one. Alex, the negotiations have resumed after quite a long time. Help us understand at this stage what are the main sticking points and what both sides hope to achieve.
But if you remind me of the meeting that was held in the country of Oman, in the city of Muscat, last Saturday, April 12th, was the first time that Iran and the United States actually sat down and sort of had, if you will, kind of face-to-face. It wasn't explicitly face-to-face, it was the closest thing to face-to-face in 7 years. Since going back to 2018 when President Trump, the first president Trump completed in 2015. So last week the ice was broken. Today, a week later, the question is, can they do it? Can they create confidence building measures? Can we agree with the basic parameters for the talks to continue? That remains to be seen. That's what they kind of heavy lift for today. We need to make sure that they can, if they cannot.
And that's the thing, because there was some optimism. Is that fair to say, following that first round of talks in Oman, both sides described it as positive. Should we be expecting any sort of a breakthrough now?
Wow. So the Brits has been with our people for 2002. So you have to forgive me if we're so cautious, and at least on the front. There's definitely some kind of optimism. The Iranians want to talk, the American side wants to talk. The question is, what are they going to talk about? I think the issue of talking about Iran is more or less to be pushed forward. I think the United States has reached the right can have a civilian nuclear program. That is what provides us with enough for a regulatory deal. The question is here the deal is that the American side will walk the conversation, talk about the issue of Iran and the region and so forth. If that happens, then I have no idea what we're considering.
Yeah, fair enough. We won't to the left of the actually see it. And the other aspect of this that I do want to ask you about is the government structure of Iran, because the US actually pulled out of the nuclear pact with Iran during Donald Trump's first term as president. And at the time, Trump was very outspoken about the issue. Take us, if you could help us recap that, what was the objection and how have things changed?
So Donald Trump was famously against the Obama nuclear deal in 2015 because he said it just didn't really take the fear of the danger of Iran going to have nuclear weapon away. But the fronts and forces that Susan Randall